going to be talking about how to back out of a contract as a buyer in Utah. Now, the REPC, or the real estate purchase contract, is heavily favored towards buyers in Utah. Sellers in Utah, once they've signed the REPC, accepting an offer, they will have a hard time backing out of the contract. So if you want to learn ways of backing out of a contract as a buyer, stick around. I will be giving you all of the details right here. Hi, welcome to the Home in Ogden YouTube channel. My name is Kaitlyn Petersen. I'm a local realtor with Ridgeline Realty, and today we are talking about how to back out of a contract, the real estate purchase contract, if you are a buyer. But if you would like to learn ways of backing out as a seller, then you're going to have to check out my other video right here. Okay, let's get into it. The first thing you need to know is be sure you keep an eye on your dates that you set or your realtor set in the REPC. So you will have until those dates to back out. And also consult a lawyer if you have any issues. So if you choose to back out during those dates, you will be risking the loss of earnest money, which we can talk about here in a few minutes. But if you are a buyer, you have quite a few times during the under contract phase to back out. This is like a few times that you can say never mind for any reason at all, get your earnest money back. So that's when I say it is heavily favored towards buyers. So the first date is actually the seller's disclosure deadline. This deadline is when the sellers have to provide, as of 2022, it's a 16-page document. So this document outlines everything material about the property that the seller is aware of, from leaks that have been fixed to maybe even one time they had raccoons in the chimney and they had to get them removed. So this document covers the seller if any of these issues were to arise during an inspection. This is legally required regardless of occupancy. So even if they didn't live there, they have to disclose everything that they're aware of. So also during this time, they actually have to provide information on the HOA. So this has to do with like the monthly or yearly dues, the CC&Rs. This is the covenant, conditions, and restrictions of the community, commonly called CC&Rs. So this means the rules governing the use of a certain piece of real estate. So for example, they can regulate anything from fences to the house or garbage cans. So they have to provide also the meeting minutes for the past HOA meetings or any other special assessments that have been put on the property. So during this time also the PR is provided. So the PR is the preliminary title report. The report has 5 parts. So it's going to be what's not insured, specific title insurance requirements for that property, what is being insured, the amount of insurance, and who is being insured, so the buyer and or the lender. So remember that the amount of insurance has to cover the sales price as well as the loan price. So this report also shows easements that will not be shown in public records, encroachments, boundary issues, rights of parties and possessions. So this meaning that the person selling the house doesn't actually own the house, or if there's a significant lien on the home. So you as a buyer can back out of the contract if you find out that the title company can't actually prove that the seller can prove clear and equitable title, or that they don't even own the property. Okay, so that's the first time. The second time is the due diligence phase. This is just an all-encompassing phase that a buyer can back out. This would be your easiest time for you to back out if you don't want to lose your earnest money. Now, don't forget to check your contract, but this is the time to do it. So the due diligence phase in Utah is when you as a buyer can do all of your inspections. So here's a list of the things the REPC says you can and should inspect. So let's go through the list. The physical condition of the property, the existence of any hazardous substances such as asbestos, radon gas, lead-based paint, environmental issues or geological conditions, the square footage or acreage of the land or improvements, the condition of the roof, walls, the foundation, the condition of plumbing, electrical, mechanical, heating and air conditioning systems, and fixtures, the condition of all appliances, the cost and availability of homeowner's insurance. So if your homeowner's insurance is too high, same as flood insurance, if it's even available, applicable water sources, availability and quality of that, the location of the property lines, regulatory use restrictions or violation fees for services such as HOA dues, municipal services, and utility costs. convicted sex offenders residing in proximity to the property, and any other matters deemed material to the buyer, that's you, in making the decision to purchase the property. So what this means is that you as a buyer are encouraged to inspect everything encompassing the property. And if you just straight up don't like something, you have the right to back out. So this is going to be your easiest way. If you think the sky is not blue enough, then go ahead and back out. It's up to you. This is your date to go ahead and back out. Okay, the third time is the inspector. So the inspector will need to assess the property and inspect all the materials about the home. So the inspector will come over and inspect the condition of the house, and this is during your due diligence period. So you know what to expect whenever you move in. So just be aware that inspectors always find something to fix or update or just warn you about, like the tree's too close to the house. Even if it's like, oh, the water heater's like a few years old, you might want to fix that. If you find something that you want the sellers to fix, you really have three options here. You can have your agent send them a list of repairs that you actually want them to complete before closing. Two, you can have a certain amount of money go towards your closing costs. If you're like, well, it's about $2,000, let's just put that towards closing costs. Or you can do the same thing with a reduction in purchase price, and that's totally up to you in the end in your negotiations. So this can go back and forth until you both decide on what's fair. So the next step in the process is when a buyer, you are getting a loan, and most times the buyer is getting a loan from the bank to purchase the property. So the bank will order an appraisal. We've all heard about, oh, the appraisal deadline. This is something that checks to see if the house is worth the amount that the bank is loaning you. So the bank will not loan you more than what the house is worth. So it's just to cover them. So if the appraisal comes in lower than the offer price, then you can either back out of the contract or come up with a difference. So let's do an example. So if you offered to buy a property for $350,000, but then the appraisal comes in at $325,000, you have to come up with a difference in cash at closing, or you can back out, or you can negotiate. So the buyer, you can also back out of the contract if the terms of your loan are not favorable. So like you don't like your interest rate, or you just don't like the monthly payment, whatever it may be, it didn't end up being what you wanted. But this is a difficult one because if you back out during this time, usually check your contract, this will be a loss of earnest money. So just be really sure, like up front, that your loan is what you want it to be. So let's talk about earnest money. If you want to back out of the contract at a time that the earnest money will not be refunded, you can back out, but you have to pay damages. So damages come into play as earnest money. So the amount that you as a buyer have entered into as your earnest money amount, you would have to forfeit to the seller if you backed out during your earnest money, like if it goes hard. So that means it's not refundable past a certain date. So be sure, again, check your contract to see what that date would be. So for example, if you as a buyer put in $10,000 earnest money, that's a lot. And you as the buyer need to back out after the hard earnest money date. Something came up, you can't buy it anymore. The seller would get their $10,000 in damages. So what does that mean, damages? Like, what damage was done? Well, if you take a home off the market for days or even weeks, sometimes months during your contract phase, not only can the market just change like that, but the perception of the home changes. So I know as an agent, if I see a home on the market like longer than a couple of weeks, a buyer's gonna say, what's wrong with it? And so sometimes the MLS can accumulate days on market and it shows how long it's been for sale accumulative. So it will make it harder to sell. Sometimes the seller will have to reduce the asking price of the home in the end, just depends. But for whatever reason, they really just want to make sure their buyers are serious when they're accepting an offer. So that's why we use earnest money. So it can be difficult to overcome if you're off the market and then you come back on the market. And the last thing about earnest money is if you've paid out earnest money or somebody's accepted earnest money, you can no longer sue the other party. So you can't sue them for more money in the end after you've taken earnest money, and you can't sue them for specific performance. So that means you actually can't sue them to actually sell the house to you. So if you want to back out, or the seller wants to back out, make sure you consult your realtor or your lawyer for the best option for you. So, is that everything you wanted to know? There's a lot of times that a buyer can back out of a contract in Utah. There's not many times that a seller can do it. And again, I have another video about that. Okay, so that's all I have to say for today. I hope you stick around and watch my other video, and I will talk to you later. Bye.